All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know we're starting a little bit late, but don't worry. It's going to be a really great session. So in case you missed it, we're looking at events management and technology. And before we begin, we wanted to just give you a brief intro into who's putting this on. And okay, that's fine. I know. I did. Okay, so in case you're wondering, or if you're new to this kind of event, we are Toronto Net Tuesday, but we are a volunteer event, and we're actually part of TechSoup Canada. So TechSoup Canada, we're a nonprofit that strives to empower other nonprofits and charities on how to use technology effectively. Our main way of doing this is through our technology donations program. Let me know if I'm in the way. So our technologies program is exactly what it sounds like. We get donated or discounted software from big names like Microsoft, from Adobe. We also have other things like Shopify and Huddle, and we give it to nonprofits at a discounted price or donated. And we do this as a group of, right now we are 6 people. So we are a small-time operation. We do charge a small administrative fee, but they're really small compared to retail prices. So for example, Microsoft Office, you can get, I think, like one of the programs for about $13 administrative fee. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Whereas retail is like in the upwards of hundreds. So that's our software technologies program. The main gist of how this works is a charity or nonprofit will apply with us, and there is no charge. It's free to apply. And then we match up their needs with the donor partner's needs. So, which is why up here you may be eligible. It's not saying that you can have all the things in our catalog, but majority of our nonprofits qualify for a majority of these products. So if you're interested, come check us out and sign up. It's free. There's no hassle. Once you get qualified, you can see which donor partners you qualify for, if you qualify for Microsoft or Adobe, etc. Aside from the donations program, we also have learning content, such as this event, but more in line with our brand. So we have learning content on our website, like blogs. We have newsletters about upcoming tech themes or just general basics that nonprofits should be aware of, like CRMs, how to set up a drive on your computer, things like that. So if you're interested, again, come check us out. But that's all to say that this event is actually part of a global network called NetSquared. And these events this group is part of this mission to help organize or people to come together and talk about technology and social impact. So we're all in Toronto, so you come to this event. But we also have our other branches in Vancouver, in Hamilton. Yeah, why am I memorizing it? It's not a screen. So yeah, we have actually a global network, and in case you're not in Toronto and you ever want to come out, you can look us up online. Those are our main ones, but I know there are smaller ones coming up. Yes. The typical flow of what's going to happen, we're starting off with introductions and welcome. Then I'm going to pass it to our lovely speakers. Fanny will talk about the tech shift, and you'll know what that means later. Then both of them will present on tech or no tech, and also, lastly, selecting the right management tool for your events. So, okay, I swear I have this last note. Upcoming Net Tuesdays, if you're a regular attendee, we're not going to have one in December because it's the holidays and you want a break. And we also want a break. So the next one we're going to start up is in January. So we typically have these events every second Tuesday of the month. So for January 14th, we're going to look at tech trends and tech planning for 2014. Then in February, we're going to look at CRMs. And in case you're not sure what that means, it's kind of like a donor management tool or how you manage your constituents. So that would be a very interesting topic. Okay, so introductions. We're going to give you guys about 5-10 minutes to kind of mingle and talk to each other because that's what these events are about. If you can tell the other person your name, which organization you are from or not, it doesn't matter. And then we posed 2 questions with the meetup, and I know a few of you have already answered this, but it's actually really interesting results, so I think it's great to kind of redo these questions. So the first one is, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to managing events. And it can be anything, it can be logistics or planning or technologies. And the second one is, what is the most helpful technology you have used for your events? And it doesn't have to be crazy high tech, or it can be Excel. So 5-10 minutes, intermingle with yourselves. I gather those are two really great questions to kind of get this ball rolling, and to give you a sense of how great these questions were. We did ask this before the event happened, and Fanny found that majority of the attendees found that organizing and coordination is one of the hardest challenges. On one hand.
Yeah. And then audience as well.
Getting people.
Yeah, getting people, targeting people, converting Facebook RSVPs into actual attendees. So that's two big chunks that we identified.
Yes, yes. So that's very interesting. I don't know if your discussions have the same experience. So before I introduce the speakers, I also want to highlight these worksheets. We will be working through them later on. If you don't have one, I'm going to pass like 2 piles down these columns. And if you could take one or pass it behind you. And if you need pens, we have some here. Does anyone need pens? Okay. So without further ado, this lovely person here is Fanny. She is an event coordinator for the past 10 years. I'm blocking it. She has spent the last 10 years coordinating events in so many different sectors, non-profit, for-profit, you name it. So right now she is a general manager of Subtle Technologies. It's a Toronto Art and Science Festival, and she concurrently runs Art of Festivals. So if you're looking for someone who is a great seasoned event manager that can do so many things, it's Fanny. And then we also have Ben. Ben is actually the president and CEO of Uniiverse. It's a social marketplace for events. It's similar, Meetup or Eventbrite. So it's a platform like that. So he can speak to what the market side looks like. So you don't have to wonder how ticketing works or how other things like that work. I'll let him speak to it because I'm going to mess up. So now we're going to switch to give the floor to Fanny.
Okay, and you've done the intro, so I can skip that.
Oh, yes.
That's wonderful. I just want to give a bit of background maybe for the, that's the next one, I think. Yeah, for why, what kind of inspired me, I guess, to create such a workshop. The idea to this, it's kind of to present technological tools to help you to manage events, but it's also to help you to make the right decision when it comes to, for example, choosing a platform or actually doing technology at all. So one example that we'll go through around the end of the workshop is one of the examples on your table. I was volunteer coordinator last year at Luminato, and we're using a software, like a big volunteer management platform, and it was just badly set up, basically. I had been there for about 5 years, but badly set up. It was a nightmare. We're finding ourselves doing tasks several times or going around the system to actually get anywhere. We were finding out, mistakes basically that we hadn't identified before, so we were miscommunicating with our volunteers. It was quite frustrating. Obviously we managed, that was fine. But then I undertook some research into volunteer management software platforms. So it's on my blog if you want to see it actually. And I thought it was really important to get the right conceptual tools basically to approach such questions. So when you talk about technology, it should be helping you, not hindering, of course. And for example, changing such a platform like a database, it's really annoying because there's many things to take into account. And for example, in that case, the volunteers themselves, they're used to a platform. They might think that it's fine actually at their end because that's all they know, or because they're used to it, or because they just see the end of it, the end user side of it. So there's many things that can cost you money, but also time. And really, when it comes to event management, time is the essence. So I thought it would be great to take it from that approach and to also think about well, what I'm going to talk about next, which is what for the tech shifts. Just the fact that I started 10 years ago, I organized my first big conference in 2004. That was in Liverpool, in the UK, and we had mobile phones. I had a pay-as-you-go mobile phone, and that's it. And we were in an international hotel, a conference center, and I don't even think it was Wi-Fi. Anyway, no one had a phone that would connect to Wi-Fi, right? So we had everything printed, everything was paper-based, registration lists, that kind of stuff. We didn't even have a laptop. Actually, everything was paper-based. So it was face-to-face, on the phone, and then, I mean, you know how it was. You know, people would not cancel overnight because they couldn't. You know, so so that's the tech shift for me. And I wanted to ask other event professionals what they thought about it. So I did a survey. I had 50 responses, so it's quite, you know, like it's an okay sample, I guess. And one of the questions I asked them is this one. In the past 10 years or so, what is the one single piece of software, equipment, or technological tool at large that has radically changed the way you work? It's kind of all the same, really. I mean, there were a few other responses, but to me that was the majority of responses, and that really shows, you know, that it's just not the same anymore, right? We have remote servers, we have the clouds. I mean, again, I have, you know, lots of memories of not having a remote server, or the first remote server that we had, and it meant that we didn't have to go to the office to check emails, which was like amazing. And then smartphones, actually it's kind of the same. And the big thing that enables all of this is to have internet everywhere, to have Wi-Fi, you know, absolutely everywhere. Now it's free everywhere as well. I mean, it's just readily available. So now you can connect, you can exchange information. It's really an enabler. And just start to imagine for 1 minute what it would have been like to organize something like the Olympic Games with, what, typewriters? You know, but it was possible. So this technological shift, for me, changed a lot of things, but at the same time, it can't have changed everything. So that's why I want to, you know, kind of investigate with you tonight. It's, you know, there are ways to do events in a simple way that don't require you to learn many tools, to pay for, you know, event management software, that kind of stuff. So that's why I asked these event professionals. I asked them about their attitude to technology. Actually, there's one person who didn't even reply, and she's definitely in the last line. Can you read okay? That's the result from the survey on Google Forms, actually. So techno-skeptic, you don't feel the need to get any new tools, right? Technophobe, actually. There's one person who didn't reply because she didn't even understand how the whole survey worked and all that. This person is definitely techno-skeptic. She's a huge live music producer here in Toronto. She manages the, she created and manages the Christmas market at the DCB district. She's a big events producer, and she uses Excel. So this is why I wanted to have this kind of, you know, context, basically, just to say that it's not all about the tools you use. It's half and half people who self-identify as early adopters and late adopters. And late adopters, like, to me, that means, you know, there's not that many pioneers. To me, that means that event professionals are quite pragmatic people, and they won't waste their time testing something in its beta mode, you know, because they have to get going, right? So they would really wait until something is really ready for their needs. And there's not that many things. I asked people their latest top tech discovery. I mean, Smartsheet, I don't even know if it's one of TechSoup people who said it. I mean, someone said it. Smartsheet is quite interesting because it's a project management tool, which is based on spreadsheets. But, I mean, if you notice, it's the only project management tool. There are other responses, of course. These were the most interesting, I thought. There's only one project management tool here. And again, I want to, you know, just maybe hammer the point home that coordination, you can't just substitute your own organized mind, basically, by using like a magic tool. That won't happen. So all the responses in the 2 questions that we asked before you came, you know, a lot of people want to manage better the whole scheduling and logistics and all the fine points, the fine details, get everything together. To me, it's about your own organized mind more than using a project management tool. It might help, you know, but it won't replace it. Other things, I don't know if they're interesting to you, they're useful. Square, something you put on your phone, it's magic, I think. And then you can use a credit card. RFID wristbands, that's contactless. So basically you can, you know, like have different types of delegates or festival attendees or stuff like that, and they just scan their wristbands. That's pretty cool. Login, I have no use for it, so again that might be useful to you. You can log into all your devices remotely. Okay, that sounds great. YAST is my suggestion. It's task time tracker. I like it. It works for me. You can track all your projects, and if you do billable projects, you know, if you bill your clients by the minute or by the hour, it's really great for that. And it can also help you to really understand how much time you spend on meetings, for example, or on you know, just like creative programming and then the actual logistics. Like you can actually start understanding how you spend your time. So, I mean, it's good for me. I'll try to go through it quite quickly because we've got a lot to cover. When choosing a new tool to help with event or project management, the most 3 important criteria, it's basically ease of use. Easy to install and set up, easy to learn or train others on, easy to use on a daily basis. And I think that's really, really important. Again, you know, these respondents are senior event managers. They want something that's easy, not something that's scalable, not something that has great reporting features. That's really secondary. Like, we have no time to waste, basically, on you know, getting someone to come and train the staff and things like that. What I want to say, it can be useful, but it's a big decision, and that's what we'll come to later when we do the product demonstration. And then this I thought was important, so I asked people in which cases do you go low tech and use pen and paper. So brainstorming, to draft schedules, to do site sketches, to take notes during meetings or interviews, to create a to-do list, and also to write thank you notes, which I thought was really nice. It's actually a really nice touch, and I will remember it in the future. So this, again, seems to say to me that, you know, technology can't replace your thinking, basically, and this whole pen and paper thing is really not to be discarded in favor of, you know, the latest tools. If you're very comfortable using stuff like Evernote, that's great, but not everyone does. And people who are, you know, have been managing events for a long time, people who do that, you know, very seriously, like really large-scale projects, they don't necessarily use all these things. That's, I don't know, it's nice. I'm a bit technophobe here. So now we're gonna try to do this interactive task, and we're gonna talk about tech or no tech to try to figure out. You know, when technology is helping, when it might be hindering, or when it might be superfluous. And this actually doesn't need to be a surprise because it's in your handouts. Well, this is maybe my own way of breaking down an event. This is, I don't know, this is the way I envisage things. So it's almost linear, actually. Obviously, we all know that when you create an event, you have to do everything at once. But obviously, we start with the concept first, your plan, your USP, whatever you want to call it. Then there's your content, the actual programming. Then we need to think about how to fund that programming, so be it your speakers or your, you know, music bands or whatever. Budgeting, fundraising, accounting, these are quite different features, actually, different functions, different softwares, I guess. Sales and marketing, there's more to say than that, but I just call that communication and then ticketing. So we need to talk to people, we need to engage them, have a dialogue, but we also want them to give us money, I guess. And operations, again, there could be way more than that, but let's consider scheduling. So actually having some really work plans, knowing what happens when, who does what, all that kind of stuff. And then volunteers, I mean, if you're all rather in the non-profit and charitable world, you might be using volunteers. So, I think if you go above maybe 50 volunteers, actually you might really benefit from the platform, maybe 100. And then evaluation, that's very, very important. And so these are all on your handouts, the ones with lots of little lines. What I envisaged here, and I hope this is going to work, is actually to get some participation. So I don't know if we should do it in tables, table-based, or if you want to, feedback directly. What do you think would work best? We can try to maybe think about the beginning together, but it would be great if we can all benefit from each other's experience, basically. So I'm going to explain what I had in mind. It's not very clear, I think. So what I'm calling hard tech is really complicated platforms, usually databases, things like that, heavy duty, things you actually need to install and set up and fine-tune to your own needs. I'm thinking stuff like Razor Edge. I'm taking stuff like box office management systems. It's complicated. I'm thinking Ticketmaster, if you're using, like a ticketing service. It's complicated, it's obscure, it's opaque, and it's difficult to get out of it as well. So this is almost something to avoid, basically, and I think it's important to identify what you don't like, what you want to stay clear from. What I call easy tech is the new generation, like all these tools, but actually made much more intuitive, much more fluid, user-friendly from both ends, from the administrator end and from the user end as well. Things like Facebook, things you don't need to have someone coming all over from their headquarters to actually train your staff on. Things that are quite intuitive, or there's maybe some self-help, things that are accessible. And then no tech or low tech, I think it's important to to bear in mind which functions of the event planning and delivery process, in which instance either you don't want to go towards technology, because it just means that you won't waste your time trying platforms and things like that. Okay, let's try that. In terms of concept, I just put it here because it's in the event function, but personally, to me, there's nothing that could help. What do you think? Some people might use, actually, that's not true, I'm talking about. You could be using mind mapping. Mind mapping. Does anyone use stuff like that? So what do you think about that? Do you think that's useful?
I swear by mind mapping tools.
Okay.
Just for visualization purposes, yeah.
So should we put a few names down, for...
Sure. I think on hard tech, put something like Xmind down.
Say again?
Xmind.
Xmind. I'll just write it here so that everybody can see it. And what's wrong about it?
There is a bit of a learning curve. If you're a non-technical user, it might be a bit overwhelming. It's not like SAP level hard, but it's still a bit of a learning curve. Versus Easy Tech being like some of the Easy Tech could be Prezi, something simple, internet-based. Which?
MindNode.
There we go. MindNode.
Very easy.
MindNode?
MindNode.
Okay.
Like mine, M-I-N-E.
Unit.
So maybe, do you mind explaining to other people like what Xmind is? I'm not sure if I'm personally not familiar with it. So maybe
Sure, so Xmind is a desktop application that allows you to create diagrams and mind mapping. Actually, I can fire it up on my laptop. It allows you to create site or visual maps, diagrams. It's like mind mapping as you would on a whiteboard, but done in an application. And then it allows you to export that mind map into a variety of formats. So if you wanted to present it, or put it in an Excel spreadsheet, or create a PDF, or do whatever with it, it supports all of that. So
What's mind mapping?
let me.
It's visualizing your ideas. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, there's probably not very good way to explain, but it's like doing post-it notes, but on the computer, I guess.
So mind mapping, if you think back to like elementary school when your teacher would go up on the board and talk about how do you create a story, and then in the center is your story, and then you have bubbles.
Oh, like brainstorming.
Brainstorming.
Yeah.
Mind mapping is the visualization of the brainstorming
It's like a
activity.
visual outline.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know the software, but it sounds a lot more like Prezi, which is a lot simpler, and I don't think it have any learning curve into it.
Yeah,
It's
right.
just a whiteboard, put stuff in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be like the note tech. Just
Yeah.
do it on a whiteboard, do it on a piece of paper.
Yeah. And the other one was Mind O.
Mine, no.
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 M-I-N-D N-O-D-E.
Oh,
It was open source.
right. And then, yeah, let's just call it Post-it.
MindJet is pretty good too.
Say again?
MindJet. M-I-N-D-J-E-T, MindJet. It has a lot of templates, so it's pretty good. It's quite easy tackle.
So, I mean, I just want to point out the difference in attitude because me, I would go there, and some people swear by it, and I'm sure that some people are really fine with something like Xmind. I mean, maybe it's what's there, or maybe it's already obsolete. Who knows? And they're trapped with it. But this is just the difference.
This is what Xmind looks like. To give you a visualization.
This mind map is the tool that I use on my iPad, but it's not really
Yeah.
easy.
That's all.
And I guess you have to evaluate the size of your event as well, because I feel like some people kind of like feel more comfortable because they have all these softwares and tools, but that may not be a requirement depending on the size of your event. It's like if you're hosting like a 50 people, if you're working on like a 5,000 or 50,000 person event, then things like that where you have multiple people working on might definitely be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just like programming. You know, what could that take? Some phone calls, maybe. You know, booking speakers, that kind of stuff. Establishing contracts. I mean, I'm thinking speakers, but what kind of events do you do? We could have started with that as well. That would be interesting to know. Does anyone do arts events? One. Anyone or two?
I might be getting involved in one. Like, should be good to hear about.
Yeah. Does anyone does workshops? You know, with speakers, anything speaker based? Right. So what are the other events? Sports? Oh yeah. Okay. What else? Food? No.
We were just fundraisers and galas.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And also we could have asked you, it's probably in my notes, but I discarded them because I can't read from here. How many people organize events, let's say more than every month? Okay. How many, maybe every 6 months or quarter? So fairly regular, but okay. And how many once a year? Okay, so it's not too frequent. Okay.
So one of the aspects of branding I think we could discuss as well is just like the identity of the event and like, you know, like logos and stuff like that. Because obviously for that, you may have your own branding and like it may come from previous years, but if you start a new project, a new event, you may have to create branding from start as well. And obviously you have different routes you can take, and maybe some of you can tell us like which route you went to, like whether it's an agency who designed branding for you and a logo for your event or a concept for the event, and there might be some online tools you've used in the past as well, more in the like easy tech. So I don't know if any of you have that experience with that.
Like developing the entire brand from scratch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you use? Like, did you do it yourself, or like, did you use any high-tech or low-tech?
I know Photoshop pretty well, so
Okay.
it was okay. Like I had a vision and I know how to deliver it, so it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
That's here, definitely, don't you think? Like Photoshop is complicated.
Definitely. Yeah.
Our method to get like a technical solution without getting someone involved technically, in-kind sponsors. So having someone who is a designer or specialized in print or digital to provide those services for us to help define the identity, but then no one on our committee needed to take care of it.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart tool to share. The other one tool I was thinking of is 99 Design. I don't know if one of you have heard of it, but it's a very interesting concept. Basically, it would be in the low tech or easy tech. So basically, you have a group of freelancers who can bid on a project. So you can say, hey, I need this concept, this logo for this event, and then I think they're different price points, but it's very cheap. It's like $150 or something like that. And then you could have like a contest running for a week, and then you have multiple bids, and then you can give the contractors feedback, and they iterate on the process. And at the end of the day, you choose which design you want, and you only pay the $150 to the contractor that basically won the bidding. So it's a very interesting way to not have to go through like a very long process. It's like very time frame and very, very easy to use. Like you can start a project in minutes. So I think that's a very easy tech thing to use.
What was the name of that?
It's called 99 Design.
Another really cheap solution is Fiverr.
Yeah.
Fiverr.com. That's Fiverr with 2 R's on the end. It's services starting at $5 from a whole.
It would be easy tech, yeah.
Well, pretty good for $5.
Yeah, but on its own.
I mean, the reliability of Fiverr versus 99 Design, obviously you pay for what you get as well. The nice thing about 99 Design is like, it's more like a bidding and more iteration, whereas like with Fiverr it's like, oh, like you give them a concept, and I mean for $5 they probably work on it for like 10 minutes and give it back, right? So, whereas like with 99 Design, I think relatively to the price, you can get a very high quality project.
So again, I actually had nothing to put in any of the 2 first columns for that first line, and then we already have lots of stuff. So what we'll do in the third part of the workshop is to do a live product evaluation to actually go through together. Well, comparing, how do you choose between all of these? How do you actually make a choice? Because, I don't know, I've tried Prezi, it's not for me, or maybe I didn't approach it the right way, or, so yeah, it's complicated, I find, because it's just proliferating, and recommendations are one thing, but the thing we'll go through as well is that assessing your needs, really putting down on paper exactly your needs. So what I just did a bit late and quickly, how many events do you have, how many attendees do you have? Also, you will have to think about your audience. Are they themselves tech savvy? So when we come to talk about, for example, ticketing, some audience groups might be more the types of really wanting to have a printed piece of paper and bringing it to the venue and getting it ripped, why not? But some people are totally okay with showing their screen, or like having a stranger handle their own phone, that kind of stuff. I think I'm going to skip content and programming because actually I don't know what we can say about that. To me it's a bit different. It was just about highlighting the functions of an event and like the iteration in a way. However, for finance, I'm sure that you have stuff to say about that. So for example, what do you use for your budgeting? How many people use Excel? Okay, so not everyone. So what else do you use? If not Excel?
One of our organizers uses QuickBooks.
Right, so that's more accounting for me. Is it not?
It would be, yeah.
But like what I mean is I'm managing your budgets. So it could be your yearly budget, your multi-year budget, or your event budgets.
You said QuickBooks, right?
Yeah.
Because FreshBooks kind of do something similar in estimates and projects, but I don't think it's suitable for an event. Like it's very subtle and simple. But
That's because I use QuickBooks for accounting, so to me it's just that, and
Yeah.
I hate it. Any other ideas? What would be useful? I mean, pen and paper, maybe. Do you have any other techniques to actually keep track of your expenses, your projections?
Using some of the Google tools, they're kind of nice because then you can share your files on your Google Drive, and everybody who's multiple projects can see those files. There's a spreadsheet application that you can use. Like I forget the name of it.
looks.
Google spreadsheet.
Yeah, but there's a.
You just call it just Google
Yeah,
spreadsheet.
sheets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Google
the Google
Sheets.
version of Excel, Google Sheets.
Yeah, well, but there's like a project management, because there's a whole bunch of tools that have been developed that we plugged into Google Drive. And there's a project
Could be
management
Smartsheet.
tool that has a whole bunch of budgeting capability. Yeah, but I'll look it up and I'll mention it.
Yeah. Well, I think Google Apps in general is actually really good, and it would really fit into this easy category because, I mean, you just go for it, don't you? It's quite self-explanatory. How many of you like actually Excel? Yeah. It's okay. It's been there for a long time and it gets slightly better every time. Yeah.
Well, I think the beauty of Excel is that whether your product is very, very small or very, very large, it has all the functions you need to like really scale it up. But I like the idea of using like Google spreadsheets to be able to like share across shareholders so that people can see the budget edited. Obviously, like the only trick with Google spreadsheet would be, well, I guess they have like who can edit versus who can modify the content. Because obviously, like for a budget, you don't want everyone, like you don't want to allow access to everyone to edit the cells. So that I think that would be a good way, depending on like how big your team is.
When I put Excel here, I mean, you know what? I think Excel could fit here as well. Sometimes.
You can store Excel on SkyDrive and stuff and share and
Yeah,
do all
exactly.
that.
Yes,
It's
Yeah.
true, actually. Yeah. No, I mean, it's much better now. Fundraising, any of you use like dedicated databases?
E-Tapestry.
How's that called?
E-Tapestry.
And where would you fit it?
The learning curve's pretty, I'll put it with high tech. The learning curve's pretty steep if you're not very technical or database minded.
How's it called?
E, and then Tapestry, capital T.
Ah, Tapestry. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, no.
Yeah, Tapestry. Okay. And I mean, does it work for you? Did you see results since you started using it?
It works in terms of many people within our organization have access to it and can use it
Right.
for different functions
Right.
within the organization. I wouldn't say we actually didn't use it for event management. We ended up using Constant Contact
Oh, yeah.
to do that with instead. It was much cheaper and didn't require hiring of their developers to develop pages specifically for e-commerce within Tapestry, which is very
Right.
expensive.
Yeah. Because
So-
here you actually Tapestry is a. I
It's
mean,
its
I
own
like
closed
Tapestry.
format, right? So even
Exactly.
myself, who might be able to develop pages for it,
Yeah.
they wouldn't allow me to.
Yeah.
So we decided to go with Constant Contact because I was able to build it, manage it, and train people after to actually manage easily train people after to manage the event management side of things after I developed it, its branding and its online presence.
I worked with a very high-end membership system called IMIS, I-M-I-S, and that did absolutely everything.
And where would you put it?
It didn't do concepts, but you could create your course. This was for professional development, so it was a different situation because people had to have credits assigned to them. So it's a professional membership, but they had an event module and fundraising module and registrations and finance and everything, pretty much.
And how is it called again?
IMIS.
Okay,
And I know that they have a newer...
Would you find it easy?
No. No, it was a high-end system, but they have a new version called IMIS 20, and that's a hosted solution, so I think that probably would be a lot easier. But but it's really good for those professional organizations that have all sorts of complexity.
So here we
IMIS.
Yeah. For some reason I don't translate information.
IMIS.
Joyce knows it.
It's okay.
Maybe.
PayPal. PayPal
Yeah.
fundraising. Sure.
Just really into fundraising, you have Artez upstairs, you got Raisin, you got Blackbot, and a lot of those, especially when it comes to events, I know for mine, I use as kind of the back end software system, and it's great for fundraising. You can link it up with stuff on the front end, but you can easily generate reports into Excel regarding anything from registration to fundraising totals, and it's pretty, it depends how you set up your system. But one of the nice things, like I even know, with Artez, because I use them for one of my bigger events, you can replicate it. So it's like literally, your starting point for year 2 is year 1, and then it's just making tweaks, which is really nice, and it's kind of a good way to use technology, like to your advantage, so to speak.
That's a custom product, isn't it, or customized?
They give you, a base to work off of, and then you can customize it.
Nice.
The companies? These ones?
Artez?
Artez is, Artez. Blackbaud is Blackbaud. And Raisin is...
Oh, the Razor Edge.
Razor's Edge is a little different because they do all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah.
Raisin is another
Raisin.
company like this.
Exactly. What's that?
Yeah. I don't know, is anyone in the room going to the AFP conference next week?
Oh, I wish.
Yeah. So
What's that?
it's the Association of Fundraising Professionals.
Oh, okay. Right.
Anyway, so these are like the big exhibitors at the conference, because if you think about it, everyone who's there, they're from nonprofits, and so they're trying to sell you all their services and stuff. But it's interesting, like everyone has different budgets of what they can afford, and each model is different. But for the most part, like something like Artez, you pay $5,000 to license it for the year, and then you're paying 3 to 5% depending on your volume on each transaction. So it depends who you are and what you can afford. Obviously, you have credit card fees are a couple percent too, but overall, if you're doing enough volume, it's worth it to be involved with one of these software, because it's just for fundraising. There's nothing like it.
It depends on volume, as you said.
Okay, I've got 2. One specifically for events, it's called My Event Runner.
Okay. And where would you put it?
That one I probably put as Easy Tech.
Yeah. And is this for logistics, for example, like scheduling?
It has to do more with the events itself and ticketing, quote unquote.
It's more the registration, right?
Sorry?
It's registration?
Thank you, yeah, registration.
Okay,
So-
which we have under sales and marketing. We don't have to do
Sorry,
things in order,
okay.
by the way.
Now, for fundraising, there's another one out there called Prodon, P-R-O-D-O-N.
And where would you put it?
I put it between Easy Tech, if I have.
Pro Dawn? Done?
Yes.
Don, D-O-N. yeah.
Okay, and that's fundraising? Fundraising?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's definitely fundraising.
So what does it do?
Just, it's, well, I could call it Razor's Edge Light, but it would be Razor's Edge cheap.
Sounds good anyway.
Yeah. Sorry, I should also know that Proton is also fully bilingual, so
Yes.
it's bilingual.
Yes.
Oh, bilingual.
Yeah, whereas some software systems aren't.
Oh,
It can run
Joy
both
says it's bilingual.
Yeah, that it is.
It's good in Canada. Yeah.
That'd be English and French.
Yeah. Just to build off what he was talking about in kind of the cheaper category, people in the room might have used CanadaHelps.org, which still even kind of got the party started in that cheaper area, but they're still good, and you can set up anything, ticketing on their events, donations. They're really cheap. So
yeah, and everywhere. I mean, it is an easy solution.
Yeah, I think it's just CanadaHelps.org. It's not My Canada, but.
I don't know. I can't translate information.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's very strange. Accounting is something interesting. I mean, something you have to do. I guess we can skip it. What about email marketing? What do you use? What do you like?
MailChimp.
Say again. MailChimp. Who uses MailChimp? And who uses something else?
iContact.
iContact.
I use something called Ping, P-I-N-G-G, because I like to get RSVPs. And it's really simple, and people don't have to log in and do anything or have special email addresses.
Okay.
You experiment around like what do you mean by RSVP? Email RSVP?
Oh, you send people invitations, and then they RSVP yes or no or maybe. They can leave you notes, messages. It's really super simple. It's hosted, and it's very cheap, or free if it's under 250 people.
Does anyone use something else? And well, someone has switched from MailChimp to something else. So I personally use MailChimp, but I find it very expensive. So as you build your list, it becomes very expensive.
Absolutely.
And I know, like from like a lot of our event organizers, like they complain because it's difficult to justify the return on investment. It's like if you have a list of 5,000 people, and the conversion on signups is only like I don't know 2%, 3%. You're still paying MailChimp like $200 per month. Like sometimes like it's difficult to justify that. So I'm just wondering if people have found like cheaper solution. Obviously, like you probably pay for the price. Like MailChimp is really good in terms of deliverability. Like it's very easy to use. I'm a big fan of MailChimp, but I'm just wondering if someone. Sorry.
You get bananas.
But I'm just wondering if someone has found something.
So not cheaper, but we converted from MailChimp to eTapestry as our, because it's part of that whole suite of, it does a lot than just fundraise.
Interesting.
There's a tool by a Toronto-based company called Upany. It does the same thing as MailChimp, it's just a bit cheaper.
Opening?
UPAKNEE. Upany.
On the high end of these programs is what's it called? Oh wow. Constant Contact.
I don't like it, but
That's they actually have really dynamic features. Like we used it at Canadian Tire. It actually the email gets sent to you empty, and based on your cookie and what you visited at Canadian Tire, the thing will populate on the go. If you were interested in kitchen, you will see kitchen products. That's like in the high end of.
There's Eventbrite.
Yeah, of course.
Eventbrite for email marketing?
Well,
we put it there.
Technology-wise,
a vertical response. Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
Oh, sorry. Then.
No, that's fine because I mean that's
20 times more.
just a bit different. This is about managing your list. This is about getting people to sign up. I mean, is anyone here not using email lists like this? You know, has anyone totally moved away from newsletters? No, okay.
Oh, I have a question. Are there any text-based lists? Because I know that a lot of the younger crowd that I have as volunteers, they don't really look at emails.
That's what I'm trying to hint at, actually.
I think for our last event, we used Eventbrite, and I know that Eventbrite sent out notifications that went directly out from the website about the event.
Sure, right. I see what you mean. Yeah.
But then also, so we didn't really have to send out any MailChimp stuff. But then also, we had a pretty strong social media campaign. So a lot of the discussions were on Facebook and Twitter. And so therefore, you really weren't sending this email communication. It was this online discussion that was surrounding the event instead of having to have that kind of one-way email.
You upload your list to Eventbrite? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, well, basically with Event, there's a spot where you can have an Excel list of all your people, and then you can upload it. But that was only for the first 20 that signed up before we put it on Eventbrite. Everybody else signed up on Eventbrite. So they went on Eventbrite and they bought the ticket.
No, you said Eventbrite sent the invitations. How they you upload your email list to Eventbrite in order for them to send it out?
No. Everybody who signs up for a ticket gives their email address on Eventbrite.
So you're doing all everything through Eventbrite.
Exactly. So it's just like all the notifications, it was automatically done through Eventbrite.
So that's more around your event communication rather than your regular newsletter, basically.
Yes, exactly.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if email newsletters will stay around that long because it's so much to do. I mean, I think just for myself, for example, I have so much to do that I don't know if I will carry on with them. And we have tiny lists, so I don't know. It's a dilemma.
We found that our email open rates over the last 4 years had really been declining, so we stopped doing our newsletters, moved everything, social media and the blog, and only used email for important announcements leading right up to the event.
Okay.
Other than that,
so not burning your...
no, we stopped the 3 months out, 2 months out, gradual ones.
That's kind of what we've done. Our e-newsletters are strictly for press releases now. We barely send any newsletter. They used to be long, huge things 3 years ago. And since we have such an active social media and blog presence, we just don't need it as much.
I think that was a big shift for me as well, as an event and marketing manager, to actually finally get to know how many people read that newsletter that I sweated over all night, to format and all that. And at some point I was just sending them through Outlook. That's all I had, and so I had no idea at all. And then suddenly when I realized that, okay, now we can know, you know exactly where people click, and I don't know if they open it twice or that kind of stuff, when they open it. It's kind of weird, really, but it does allow you to be much more responsive.
I have a question for you. What is the percentage of your list that you send invitation or event? Invitation do you actually what's the average ratio for people on your list to actually come to your event from your list?
I've just started my new job, so I really can't answer at all. I think it really depends. We're actually discussing with Joyce and Tierney how many people come, respond on Meetup and then come to this event. Well, it's been running for enough that they know that it's about 50%. But then it could be totally different because it depends on the audience, it depends on the type of event. Obviously, it depends if you ask them for any sort of commitment as well. But I think Facebook is notoriously not really representative. Seems to me. I don't know. It really depends. I think this is actually what. This is the beauty of these email lists, is that it's supposed to be your segmentation. It's supposed to be your audience segmentation, and I was using a really...
I just wanted to know, am I an average?
Yeah, so maybe I can answer a bit from our experience with the event industry. So we send a lot of emails. We have our event organizers sending a lot of emails. What we see is that obviously when it's very, very relevant, the open rate is very high. The click rate really depends on the type of the event, the price of the event, the timing, stuff like that. But overall, in the industry, if you get a 20% open rate, you're doing a really, really good job. And then if you get a 5% click rate, you're top of the industry. So, when you consider list, of 5,000 or 10,000 people, that's a very small percent of people who are actually going to click on your links. And that's why I was asking a question about MailChimp, because MailChimp is expensive when you're this big. And when you see the return on this campaign, it's not that big. But I still believe that email marketing, when it's done very right, is the best way to convert people. Because you have the attention, like in front of the computer, they're ready to purchase. But what I would say that's very, very important is to make it very, very relevant. So what we've started to do more and more is to customize recommendation newsletters. So instead of a newsletter that goes out to everyone, we send an individual one. We send a lot less, but it's a lot more relevant. So we're going to say, hey, James, we know that you have 2 or 3 people that you know are attending this event, and then we recommend just for you. And we've seen like tremendous increase in open rate and click rate, but we send a lot less emails.
No, I just meant, so how are you doing that? What are you using to help you?
Oh, well, that's kind of like our software.
So that's Uniiverse, which we'll talk about later. I just want to add something on that, is that if you don't have a very sophisticated system that gives you all the information you need about a customer, for example, if you work with a box office system, you know, when you sign up for a ticket, say at the RCM or, you know, at, like the Roy Thompson Hall, whatever, you know, for the symphony, then they will ask you lots of information. And for example, they'll have your postcode and things like that. So they actually map you, and then they have the capability to like mine that data. You know, they can actually extract information from just this data. They know things about you. They know as well, because you're in their system, they know how many events you attend with them and sometimes with partners. You know, so this is how you can actually customize. If you don't have that kind of information about people, then there's not much you can do. You can guess, but you need to have these deep systems, basically. So we'll talk a bit more about.
And there are a lot of systems around like automation and machine learning on like your users. Some are very easy to implement. So if you have more questions, like it's kind of like more. It's not really related to events, because if you're organizing one event, like I would then recommend going that route. But if you're more interested in automation, so like that, I'm very familiar with the industry, so I can kind of like tell you like what the space looks like.
Yeah, I think the best thing when it comes to email marketing, just you were talking about open rates to improve them, is if you're using something like MailChimp or even a different system, it's doing segmentation, and it's like you were saying customizing, but it's also making sure people don't get duplicates. And one of the things you can do in MailChimp is put people into groups, right? And I use that, I know, all the time. So it's like someone might have been a participant, a volunteer, and a donor in 2012. Instead of getting 3 emails, you can get 1, because you can set the segmentation to say, send to participants 2012. Then send to everyone who's a donor 2012, but who's not a participant in 2012, and you can do those kinds of cool things, and I find that increases your open rates like a ton too.
And most importantly as well is that it helps you get away from the spam filter, because like about 90% of emails globally don't get delivered. Obviously a lot of them are actual spam, but a lot of legitimate emails, but like 15% of legitimate emails don't get delivered. And the reason why is that because you send these duplicate emails, and instead of like, you know, like people finding the unsubscribe button and subscribing, like sometimes it's as easy to mark it as spam, which a lot of people do, and you'd be surprised like when people mark emails as spam, even for like a ticket receipt. Like people purchase a ticket, they want the receipt, but if they want to unsubscribe, sometimes it might even be easier for them to mark it as spam. Think about like when you market as a newsletter, because a newsletter is a lot more like spammy, and like if your domain or if your links get marked as spam too often, then the bounce rate is gonna get higher and higher, and that's gonna really kill your brand and your ability to market. So sending less frequent, more relevant emails definitely gonna help there.
I don't know if you've noticed on the new Gmail or the new updates, you can have these tabs now. And at first I thought it was ridiculous, and now I'm just saying it's just a godsend, because it means that all my Twitter updates go into their little category. I don't get distracted, basically, in my mail inbox. And I was getting used to the priority inbox with the unread, stars, and then all the rest. Then I was confused I couldn't get both at once. But I really like that system, because all my newsletters go into their category, so updates, it's just filtered. And it means that like once a day, maybe I'll check. instead of being annoyed because so and so they're sending me a newsletter when actually I'm waiting for an important email, and then I would maybe drag it to spam. It just goes into its little tab, and I find it it's really intelligent because I just don't get annoyed. I just leave them there. They don't bother me. They don't pop up as an unread email as well. So that might help.
Well, it helps the end customer, but it's difficult for marketers to get
that's true.
That's it. But Gmail is definitely the best email provider in terms of like filtering out the content, but it's part of their social media, like their global strategy of like, like making Google Plus and all that thing like a priority for people. So they have like their own agenda as well for doing that.
I think we should do registration and ticketing. Maybe we can do it at once. Because that's probably, is that a big concern of yours?
Yes.
Of course.
Who sells tickets here? Oh, okay. And who does free events then? Okay. What do you do? You didn't raise your hands.
No, I'm here just to listen to learn about that, but I don't organize events. So.
That's all right.
Not yet.
Not yet. You know all about it. So I guess some people do need a ticketing system. Some people might just need a registration system. But we can try to cover them both at once.
Yeah, I think
I was just occurred to me that there's events and there's meetings that people go to that you get notifications for. You're using that interchangeably? Okay.
It's anything that you want people to come to, because I see what you mean.
I think that's a good point, because like a meetup, you might create a meetup like for this event, but you may not sell the tickets on Meetup, for example, or you may create a Facebook event, but you may not be able to sell the tickets.
But did you mean a team meeting? Or like
Well,
a meeting
I have a
with-
volunteer group, and I send out, we have meetings twice a month, and we do work at these meetings, so I send out notices, and then that's when they RSVP and say whether they're coming or not. And that's really different than we have a plant sale once a year, and so we have, but that's for everybody, not just the group, so they're just different.
Yeah, and you have different needs for that then.
I still use Ping for all of it, but.
Right, yeah. So what kind of ticketing, let's just call it all the same, ticketing registrations, how to differentiate. Some of them do both, some of them don't. What ticketing system do you use? Ticketmaster? Constant contact. I don't know. Yeah, they're more sophisticated than I thought.
Do law.
Yeah.
For WordCamps, we have a proprietary system through the central network, and registration is separate. So all the payments are handled through that for selling tickets, but then registration is completely separate, aside from like a spreadsheet export. So proprietary system, Eventbrite, and those are the big ones. We have that one.
One of the ones I use is the My Event Runner, because it allows you to do the registration and take the payment.
Would you know the domain name? Because we're trying to find it.
Sorry? It's, the product is My Event Runner. It's Doxess, D-O-X-E-S-S is the company that does
Okay.
this.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't want to hijack it, but I also should
There's
point out
clubrunner.ca.
WordPress is also really good for nonprofits that have like pretty much no budget. What my charity, well, the charity I used to be at, we use WordPress with Event Manager or Event Espresso, and it's good for free events and also ticketing events. And that would be easy tech.
Yeah. Okay.
And then that also sends out emails.
But sorry, that was WordPress plus what?
WordPress, and then you would install this plugin called Event Manager. Or I know there's also Event Espresso. That's also just the alternative for it. And they're free, so.
Event Espresso was a very good plugin.
Yeah, I would say like Event Manager for Event Manager for some reason, but.
And so they're plugins.
Yeah, they're plugins.
So can you take payments? Yeah.
Yeah, it will be connected either through, like, if you have your own merchant account, you can connect it, or you can use PayPal.
Nice. How many people use PayPal here? Oh, that's not that many. Okay. Sorry, there is a hand.
Another one that is brown paper tickets, and I haven't been a user on the event planning side, but as a person who goes to events.
Would that be here?
Yeah, I think so.
Brown paper.
Brown paper tickets.
And what do you like about it?
It's just simple. They don't send too many updates afterwards. The timing of it is good. It just seems simple. Dan Meisner from CBC Spark, he talks about it all the time.
Nice.
So usually a good.
Good, yeah. Got Eventbrite. Who uses Meetup as an event organizer? Okay, it's a couple. Who has used Meetup for, not just this meeting but others as well? Are you regular? Okay, not that many. Do you like Meetup?
Good. Yes.
Do you? Okay. I hate it.
Too many emails.
I've used Doodle
Yeah.
to set up, like just,
So for scheduling,
sorry, yeah.
yeah, I love it. Let's put it anyway, because if you don't know, people don't know Doodle, it's really worth trying. It's cool. And they've got something called Meetup as well, which is free for 1 month, so that's how I used it. And I thought that was amazing for a consultation that I was doing. Basically, people see your personal calendar, and they can just book your time. It's very clean. You could see it used. I think it's more for stuff like hair, dressing salon, and stuff like that. But 1 month free. So if you're doing a consultation, it's actually really cool. People can book meetings with you, or for me, it was phone calls. Okay, no more ticketing experience.
I've seen somebody use that. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I would call it hard tech because it's not easily designed, but it's a FileMaker Pro database. But it gives them the flexibility of, when it comes to their ticketing, of being able to handle multiple types of subscriptions, multiple types of ticket, like seat locations,
yes,
of that sort of stuff. So it's certainly not. I certainly don't think it's easy tech, but it's quite brilliantly designed.
Yeah.
To be easy tech for the user, for the box office, the people running the box office.
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, Ticketmaster, for example, is sometimes a disaster, but Rachel.
Just as a user, I've used ShopLocket, which is from Toronto, and it's really easy. It's just like one step. You don't have to do a ton of information. But as a user, it was great, and they send out emails maybe once a week. But overall, as a product, it's really easy.
ShopLocket is fantastic for selling just if you have one-off products to sell in general. ShopLocket's an amazing.
Yeah, it's mostly focused on products, not really events.
I signed up for like a internet whatever workshop kind of thing. I use ShopLocket. Yeah.
Okay. So again, that's quite a lot, and like lots that I didn't know at all. Gosh, there's tons on this list. I feel like we should be moving on. Yeah, I know. But you can maybe try to have the same exploration for the other categories. So volunteer management, there's millions out there. I've actually posted a couple of kind of like reviews and I don't know on my blog. So it's artoffestivals.com. So there's links to a very comprehensive list of event management software, and there's a free one which is called Volunteer Spot, which is actually okay, totally okay. I would say up to 100 volunteers, totally okay, it's free. If you don't want to spend money, if you have more money, sorry?
Sorry, what was that one called?
Volunteer Spot. Volunteer Spot, that's free. And I mean, as you all know, most of all these things we're talking about, especially in the green category, often under a certain number of users, it's free. So like MailChimp, what else? Eventbrite, if you don't sell tickets, Uniiverse is the same. So like when you have small needs, you can actually access a lot of free stuff, which is cool. It's when you actually have money to spend that it becomes more difficult because you want to be just show that you're sending it well. And I think evaluation, I've put it there because it's really something to think about as well. You know, surveys, things like that. And I think it's also here that I wanted to point out that sometimes a paper survey is just better, or you know, quicker, or it will give you different results, but it's not to be discarded by any means. Actually, I will have one for you at the end of the event. But it's great. I'll tell you why it's great. Just to do paper sometimes, now and again, or to give people the space to write things, is because you will get quotes, you know, and sometimes you really need quotes, you know, to talk about your event, to talk about your services, to get this instant feedback. And so, just these little cards like this, for example, you know, you see that a lot in museums. You know, they will ask you to fill in a little card, and then they do a wall of quotes, and you just get this instant qualitative feedback, which is actually really precious. And then the demographic stuff, you know, it's a bit more complicated. And there's lots of tools for that. Okay, I'm gonna take a little break.
Does anyone have another like software that they want to talk about, like something maybe that would be beneficial for everyone that no one would know about, or like, I don't know, like your secret weapon?
Mobile apps for events. I mean, it's again, it's something that's coming up. Having a mobile app for your audience at the event.
Yeah.
I actually work for a company that develops mobile apps for events, and it's a great way to connect with your audience, to send push messages. It's a good replacement for brochures.
Programs?
Yeah, for program guides, because the program guides are outdated because they're printed a week before, whereas mobile app has updated information, along with integration with social media and stuff like that to create buzz for your event and so on.
What's it called?
It's called the Events app.
Events app.
The Events app, yeah.
Is it a Toronto startup or?
It is a Toronto startup, yes. The name of the company is the App Lab.
Okay.
We develop software.
Events app, Events Lab. There's also something I just found out because I'm a CSI tenant and they posted something on the mailing list. It's called Podium. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's very new. It's all about talks. So I don't know how they make money, don't ask me, but basically I have a talk. I'm organizing a talk coming up and I could post it. Have you seen it? Have you noticed it? Okay. So it's just
posted these events there.
Yeah, it's a listing of upcoming talks in Toronto, maybe further, I don't know. But it's free for you to list, so if you are doing some kind of speaker series or whatever, it's called Podium, and it's pretty. And it's always just more publicity, I guess.
Any other tool that you guys have used during the event that could be useful, like tweet wall or stuff like that, that can engage people during the event?
There's actually a startup here in Toronto called Twitterfall.
Okay.
Twitterfall. Fall like the
kind of like waterfall.
Yeah, waterfall. I met him at. He's actually, I believe, he's part of Social Media Cafe or something like that. He actually donated like a subscription for us to use at the event. It's actually, they added pictures.
Is it the same concept? Like it's a wall with all the tweets for the event?
Yeah, and you can either get hashtags to follow or usernames, or they added videos, they added pictures to it. So it came a long way from the first time I used it.
The same thing like TweetHub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rebel Mouse I find quite useful for aggregating content, especially around a hashtag or
What's that?
Rebel Mouse.
Rebel Mouse.
Yes, Rebel Mouse. So you can aggregate content from different social media profiles into a single page, and then you can embed that page on a website or wherever. Just find it useful for pulling things together.
Is that similar to Storify?
Oh yeah.
Not quite. The way it's displayed is a little bit different. Storify is more curated content, from the like for presentation.
So as we're covering a bit of social media, it moves so fast in that sector, especially. It's difficult, but I would just say here, it depends on your audience, really. I don't think there's much point being ahead of your audience if You know, because it takes a lot of time to manage all these platforms, just to understand sometimes the language to use, or you know, the kind of, or to evaluate as well the time it would take you to get to a point where it's actually valuable. Like I'm thinking about Pinterest, for example. I think you really need to spend a lot of time to curate something and to keep it up to date. You know, so some companies, some organizations do really well, but they're the ones who dedicated social media managers anyway, I guess. And the ones who have a lot of visual expression. Okay, so we're going to try now to move to our next part. Okay, for time. We'll do it quite fast. So I didn't really have an image for it, so it's random. So we want to try to do a live comparison between 3 different registration and ticketing platforms. So it is the back of the page we're just looking at. Basically, I've put something on your tables as well. There's one per person, one per table, sorry. And it's really just an example for you to, just to show you the kind of research you could be doing about platforms. Because it took me a long time to, I had to pitch basically this transition between Volunteer Square and Logistic to the person in charge with the finance decision. And it's funny because I ended up finding out that actually it would be less expensive to use Logistic, but it took me a while because it took me a while to figure out that I was able to change the level, the number of users, right, which would actually impacts a lot on cost. You could increase it and decrease it throughout the year, which is ideal for a festival. Because for about 6 months or 7 months, actually the account is kind of dormant. And so there's no point paying the same price all year round. So that took me a little bit of digging, and I double checked with the customer service, you know, and I thought that was really essential before taking the leap. So I even looked at stuff like customer service, and actually I thought, again, something quite interesting into the comparison, I don't know, it might be on the page, is that Volunteer Squared was much more responsive on Twitter, for example, because I put a tweet out to the world to say, hey people, are you familiar with these 2 platforms? Have you transitioned from one to the other? I wanted to get from some admin users feedback, basically. And Volunteer Square just got on board with their Twitter people, and they were in the conversation. Logistic, nothing. You know, they're much more traditional in that sense, I guess. They have a Twitter account, they don't use it, but it just ends up that they're actually more robust. I mean, it seems to me. So that could have been a bit misleading in a way to think, oh, the customer service is more responsive. Actually not, because they have a wall, that's Volunteer Square company, they have a wall where you can say what features you would like them to add, and they don't really act on it, or idle. So this is only an example, and then we're going to try to do the same collectively with Eventbrite, Meetup, and Uniiverse. But this is really about, first of all, evaluating your needs. So I've already asked you, who's using Eventbrite as an event organizer? Okay, that's quite a lot. Meetup, not that many, I guess, it's not that many. And who has used Uniiverse, so as an event organizer? Who has used as a user? Okay, okay. So a bit of everything. So the first thing here, anyway, the first thing here is really to have in mind your own needs. You know, how many events do you create every year, every month, whatever? What is the audience size? Is it free? Is it, do you sell tickets? That will impact a lot on the type of platform you might want. What are the criteria could be good to think about?
Yeah, I think one of the mistakes that people make is that they try to jump ahead of time and try to like get all the tools they need, but without really prioritizing what actually matters to them. Like, what are the 4 or 5 features that you need to make your event a success? So I think before jumping to anything, like depending on the size of the event, depending on like how big your mailing lists are, depending on like the experience that you have with events, like you need to define really what's going to make you successful. Because I think doing things like like a tweet wall at the events is great, and there are a lot of tools out there to help you do that. But ahead of time, you need to think like what's going to be the biggest challenge. Like, is it going to be to get the word out? Is it going to be to sell tickets? Is it going to be to engage people on social media? Is it going to be to make the experience the best because you know you're going to be able to sell tickets? Like all these factors you should take into consideration. And there won't be any software or platform that will solve all of them at once. So you really need to evaluate like what are the one that you need versus the one that like nice to have. So yeah, I think it's a really good exercise, and we can probably discuss as a group like what are the main things that are required like when you evaluate the software, like the registration software or ticketing platform, and how you like rank them and evaluate them.
I can't actually, I can't move my mouse. Sorry. Should I come out of the presentation?
Sure, I think we should.
Yeah, we'll just do a quick change. We don't have too much time, but what we just want to point out basically is all these different features. So, okay, so like this blank page that I gave you, the other one, the idea is to try to figure out what features we're looking at. So that could be price, for example. So we can compare the prices. That could be, I was just noting that, the ability to sell tickets, which actually we won't be able to do on Meetup, for example, but that might not be your prime concern. It could be the quality of the data that you want to obtain from people, so maybe the ability to customize the questionnaire, you know, when you ask people to register at an event, the ability to integrate within your own website, to integrate with your social media platforms, that kind of stuff.
I'm not sure we'll have time for the live demos, but what I would say is like, so one thing to consider obviously like is the level of support you need, because support is costly. So there are like some very easy to use solutions that don't require support, so these are typically cheaper. And the other one to consider as well is like as a non-for-profit, you can get a lot of pricing, and that like almost like every company says that like, you know, like non-for-profit pricing, but really try to get down to like how much you'd actually be paying depending on the size of your event. Because like some companies do the non-for-profit pricing as like a marketing tool, but it's not actually a big discount, where some companies actually give like a big discount to like don't make money on non-for-profit. So I would really try to like, you know, use your non-for-profit status when you can, and try to like really see the level of support that you get and the pricing you could get as a non-for-profit as well.
What we could do maybe, because Tierney and Joyce are quite familiar with Meetup, aren't you? So you could talk a little bit about what's good with Meetup. Hopefully we can find someone to talk about Eventbrite, and then you can talk about Uniiverse.
Sure.
Should we try that? So we could start with Meetup, and then just change it.
State requirements, or are we just going to do it?
Well, I mean, you can say what you like about it, like, you know, do you use the information that you find on it? Does that help you to do more, not business, because that's something we do, but to create more learning content? Do you find it responsive?
So the biggest thing with Meetup, if we're comparing these, Meetup is really great, and Uniiverse is kind of similar in this way. In terms of referrals, so you have a personal profile when you're on Meetup, and it will try to recommend you other events that you would like. So if you want, if one of your big goals is to actually recruit people to your events, like to kind of gain a new audience, Meetup can really help you with that, because when people register on Meetup, it will like understand what area they live in and try to point people to your events. So that's Meetup's biggest strength. Probably, in my opinion, its weakness, which like, it's an intentional weakness, or it's an intentional feature, I guess, of Meetup,
is that as an event organizer, I can only contact you lovely folks who are part of my event through Meetup. I can't send you separate emails, so that makes it kind of limited for segmentation. It makes it really hard for me to like cross-reference that with other information I have to see if you guys are also like involved with us in other ways. So that's kind of a downside, like from the data perspective, because I can't really get insight into that. But in terms of just the average, you know, like it lets you create your events, it lets you manage them, edit features, people can pay or not, all of those things. I think it's pretty standard in terms of what it does.
What about pricing?
There is a cost, but honestly I don't know what it is because it's covered by the NetSquared network for us. Do you know?
Yeah, it's I believe it's around 50 to 70, I can't remember exactly, but $50 to $70 every quarter.
Okay.
So you're charged every 3 months for what they call the organizer fees. And with the organizer fees, you can host up to 3 different, you can run up to 3 different meetup groups as a lead organizer.
Okay, so just to recap, that's about $50 to $70 every 3 months, and you get to run up to 3 groups.
Correct.
With that. So non-trivial, but not super expensive, I guess.
It depends on the size of your group. It depends, I guess, if you charge for it as well.
Yeah, you could recover some of your costs.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and the conversion rates for
it depends on the type of your events. It has nothing to do with Meetup.
And for example, do you use Meetup for events where attendees will pay at the door?
You can.
Do you? I mean, I don't know if it's common.
Personally, I don't. HackerNest, which is a very large technology social gathering, they charge at the door. It's a recommended donation or contribution, very similar to what we're doing here. Nice. When you charge, there's a mandatory charge during registration on the site. Your conversion rates go up, but your overall registrations go down. Because people are more likely to commit. If you are looking at hosting free events, you're looking at about a 40 to 50% on average conversion rate from the number of people that register to those that show up. And that might increase depending on any number of variables. What the weather is like outside. There's a lot of stuff that will affect free events.
So I think let's have a look at Uniiverse, because that's the one that people know less, and it's pretty new. So if you want to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure.
Now got some friends, so you can actually.
Yeah, sure.
You can
yeah, so basically we are a Toronto-based startup. We compete in the registration and ticketing ecosystem. So we're competing directly with Eventbrite and the like. So basically the way Uniiverse works is that it's a social marketplace for events. So we do all the ticketing for the events, the same way that Eventbrite would do. So we have a lot of advanced ticketing features. But basically what we realize is that the most common problem for event organizers is to actually reach the right people and sell more tickets. And Eventbrite and all the other ticketing platforms don't really help you do that. Whereas like we really focus on giving the organizers the tools to reach more people. And we have a very, very engaged community. So we have about like 80,000 people in the GTA who have purchased tickets through us in the past 12 months and come back to the site on a weekly basis to purchase more events, more tickets. So it's a very social experience in a way, like in a sense, like closer to like Meetup, where you have like communities of like foodies, communities of like techies and stuff like that, and you can discover events. But as an event organizer, it works almost the same way as Eventbrite, whereas like for free events, it's absolutely free. For paid tickets, we charge a small fee, which is a bit lower than Eventbrite. For non-for-profits, we actually waive our fees fully. So it's not just that we give you 10% discount. We actually don't make any money on non-for-profit events. So we work with a lot of non-for-profits. And the good thing about Uniiverse is that it works very well for small events because we have the small event organizers reach more people and leverage that community. So we also have the large events sell tickets in a very, very scalable way. And we integrate very, very deeply with the social networks as well as like your website. So you can actually sell tickets directly on your website as well as on your Facebook page with no redirect, which helps conversion, helps SEO, and helps people stay on your website. And there's no coding required, so you just put a piece of code, you copy and paste it, and then people can buy the tickets right there. Whereas like all the other ticketing websites, redirect you to a third-party page to pay, which has a significant fallout and conversion.
I'm wondering with specifically Uniiverse and maybe the other ones, whether you're working only with a website when you're setting something up, or if you have a rep that's helping you set up an event.
We have like community managers. So in each of our biggest cities, we have a community manager that basically is assigned to you when you create an event, and then you can reach out to them. But it's mostly self-serve. So like we cannot like remove the clutter and try to make the product very, very easy. So it's usually very, very easy to do things on your own, but we have community managers that basically are there to help you. And whether you're non-for-profit or not, like whether you paid customer or not a paid customers, you receive the same amount of support. And if you talk to any of our customers, I think like support is the #1 thing that we do very, very well.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And is there a connection? I know, like, it's probably competing with it, but is there a social networking connection with it so that you can, like, once you've signed up for something, you can say, share this on?
Yeah, exactly. So we're not a social network. We integrate and combine all the social networks. So you can sign up with Facebook, Twitter, Google+, as well as any email provider. So once you purchase a ticket, the #1 call to action is to invite your friends. And we have deep integration, so you can actually send customized invitations to your friend, and that's our #1 source of traffic. So we get 1.2 million invitations sent every month from buyers to their networks, and these people come back, a percentage buy a ticket, and then there's an invitation. On average, the buyer sends about 120 invitations to the social network. Yeah?
So the webcast hoster for How to Feed the World on a Small Planet used you to advertise that webcast to your 80,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
And then they used you to facilitate the engagement and the ticketing, even though it's free.
Yes.
And what else are they using you for to facilitate that webcast?
So basically, they use us to manage the registration, whether it's a free event or paid event. What's interesting is that we help you remarket to existing buyers or people who are interested in your events. So let's say you have some free and paid events. We may start with promoting the free events and getting a bit of traction, but people can see other events. And then we have a recommendation algorithm that recommends the events based on what you've done in the past. So it's kind of like, you know, at Netflix, would recommend movies, or Amazon would recommend books based on what you've purchased in the past, based on what your friends are reading, or based on what your friends are doing. So we do the same thing for events. So we're going to recommend things depending on what your friends are doing next weekend, or based on what your community is. And then, so if you look at a profile, you can see other events. So that's the working group. If you go to their profile, you can see other events that they're offering. You can see here, I don't know if everyone sees, but they're hosting like 2 events, and then you can see followers. So these are people that have either purchased tickets or followed their accounts, and then when you post new events, then you can remarket to these people.
Just out of curiosity, in your experience, how many events are, you know, like physical events versus virtual events?
On our platform, we really focus on real life interaction, so I would say about 95% are like in real life. Yeah.
English only?
English only, unfortunately. Hopefully French soon. That's my help.
How's the segmentation and transferring of information about attendees? So can you like export an attendee list to a CSV?
Yeah, so basically we give the organizers the tools that they need. So you can customize the checkout, ask questions. It could be an open field, it could be a question like, how did you hear about us with multiple choice? And then you have all the controls, so you can export that information. We also give you tools internally, so like if you want to message everyone, well, you can export the emails, add them to MailChimp, and email them yourself. But if you want, in a click of a button, you can message everyone right there. So we manage all of that internally as well. But as an event organizer, you have like all the data, all the reports, all the analytics in-house. If you want to find more information as well, so as an event organizer, if you go to create here, you can learn more about like how to host an event and sell tickets on Uniiverse. So basically, it gives you a description of all of our features and how things work, from like creating your event to selling tickets to managing the registration. So as I was telling you, like the custom checkout and stuff, as well as like selling tickets directly on your website and all that, those kind of things, as well as on your Facebook page. So we're one of the only ticketing platforms that allows you to sell tickets directly on Facebook. So basically, if you go on your Facebook page, they click the buy tickets button, and then they can buy tickets directly. So I think it's screenshots somewhere. So like this little pop-up will open directly on Facebook.
I have a question about that actually.
Yeah.
For example, if you have a Facebook event, can you integrate that? You know, how,
Yeah.
you know, because Facebook events, they're kind of cool because they're viral. You know what I mean? Like you can actually get your friends of your friends, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So if you have an actual page, what you can do is you can export your events automatically. So that's kind of like, that just saves you time basically. But what it does also, it creates a get tickets link. So as a business, you need a business, like you need a page on Facebook to do that. But basically, if you have a page, you can create that event as a page, and then it has like a get tickets link. When it clicks on the link, it redirects you to the checkout. But Facebook doesn't allow you to embed anything on that page, so that model wouldn't pop up on the event itself. So yeah, we give you tools to make it faster, but unfortunately, like the Facebook event itself is very like restricted on Facebook. So.
Does this create a history of all of the events that you've had and allow you to clone them?
Yeah, you can duplicate listings, yeah. And it duplicates all the coupon codes, and if you charge HST and all that stuff, then you can customize it.
And Joe, because I'm not that familiar with Eventbrite actually, so are there any features that are, you know, different, comparable?
Yeah, so
because I'm sure most people have used Eventbrite actually. I mean, it's been around a while.
Yeah, so the way we came up with Uniiverse, we initially were a platform where anyone could share anything on offline. So we're very, very social, and we realized a lot of people use that for events. So we decided to really move towards events, and then we built those kind of like ticketing features that everyone uses on Eventbrite. So like the basic, like sell multiple ticket price points, create coupons, message attendees. So we have all these basic layer of ticketing functionalities that you can use on Eventbrite. So it's very, very similar in that way, but then we give you the tools to basically reach more people and integrate with like social data and network. So that's why we're getting a lot of people to actually transfer from Eventbrite to our platform, because we give them the same base tools, but a lot more like reach, as well as the ability to sell tickets on your website, which has like a conversion rate which is much, much higher than Eventbrite. So we have all these tools, like the event dashboard, with how many tickets you've sold. That tool is like very, very similar on Eventbrite. Like we didn't reinvent the wheel, because like, it's working very, very well on Eventbrite. But you have tools like, for example, social deals. So you'll be able to create a deal, let's say 5% off, and you decide the percent. If people share or tweet about your event, you can really customize that, and that way that gives like more, like rule, and like the social networks then play for you, and you really like you leverage your network a lot better. So I can show you maybe I think there's an example. So this is the.
So these are customized actually to my likes or to my friends, or things like that.
So I think this one has the social deals. Remember correctly. So you can see on the book it's like $35, but then you can get 5% off by either sharing or tweeting about the event, and you get that here as well. So it gives you more like leverage into people's social networks and stuff like that. So we have a lot of tools to help you spread the word.
So I guess just to wrap up this section, I just wanted to share one, because I've used Eventbrite as well. So one of my favorite features, Eventbrite has also tons of features. One of my favorite features that some of these other tools may have, but might be useful to you guys, is that you can add tracking links when you send out the event to different people. So what I'll do is, like, if I'm sending it to one email list, I'll like add an Eventbrite tracking link. If I'm posting on Facebook, I'll put a different Eventbrite tracking link. And what that's really good is it really tells you where people are coming from to your event. So we recently hosted, for example, Office 365 for nonprofits. We did it through Eventbrite, and we found out that like the 2 emails we sent out were by far the best like ways of spreading the word. And social media, like it definitely spread the word, and we definitely wanted to do that. But in terms of like how many people actually clicked through and then how many people actually ordered tickets, you could see that it was a lot lower. So it really showed us like what are the key groups that are interested in this.
And we have the same feature called affiliate links, so you can do that. And one other thing that's kind of similar is coupon codes. So if you have different campaigns, different people selling tickets for you, you can create your own coupon codes and see who purchased tickets with the different coupon codes. So that's really useful in terms of spreading the word and tracking where the sales are coming from.
We'll have one more question, or maybe 2, and then we will let you go to your
Well, mine's a really dumb question, so you should add one more. Is there any reason why an event organizer would use more than one of these platforms?
Audience.
I can totally answer that one.
Okay.
Or are there too many disadvantages?
So I run Toronto WordPress group and WordCamp Toronto. So I'm doing conferences and I'm also doing meetups, but I'm also doing workshops and training events. Meetup.com gives you an established network. So there's a large network of people already on Meetup. It's almost like a social network for meet space, for physical space.
Let me specify my question. Okay. One event.
Right.
Would you use multiple platforms or just one?
I've always used multiple platforms.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it depends really on the type of event and the scale of the event. So I think there's obviously advantage of posting on multiple platforms. I would say about 30% of our users post on multiple platforms, if not all the platforms. But the vast majority of event organizers only sell on one platform. Yes. And I think it's because it's a lot easier to communicate with people, to manage your registration, as well as like at the door, if you have a big event, it's a big mess if you have multiple platforms.
So we promote on every platform where we exist on, but we route everybody to a single registration, a single website, whatever the event is.
If there's a social feature and you think your audience uses it, be there, because they'll want to like save their events that way. And I mean, driving to one form and one website, that's great. But you know, if you think they might be on Twitter, be there even though it's not your thing. Or have a hashtag ready
Yeah, no, I get that. I was wondering, could I use Uniiverse and Eventbrite for all of their capabilities, including registration, or am I just setting myself up for a disaster?
There is pain points in the back office, right. Especially when people sign up on one platform, and if that's not the real way to register, they show up at the event, and then you have to deal with the headache of somebody who thought they registered but never did register. They just RSVP'd for a meetup, for example.
You could use it as a test. Yeah. Maybe to actually have like a comparison of which one is more effective, and then on one event, because then
they'll probably do a test, like do one event with one platform, do the other one, the next one with another platform, and then compare. But I agree. I think like there's a lot of pain points unless if you're not selling tickets, you're fine. If it's just promotion. If you're actually selling tickets, a large event, and like at the door you don't have like the scanning app and like scanning people, like checking them in, then it would be like a big event. So one more question, I think, while Fanny is shooting the feedback now.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay around as well, so if you have any other more detailed questions, let me know.
You have a question?
How fast have you found your community growing on Uniiverse?
So we've been around for 2.5 years. The first 2 years, we've been growing like very horizontally across the world. So it was very small communities everywhere. But now that we really moved into events for the past 6 months, our community is growing at 297%. So it's almost 4 times bigger every month.
Yeah, because I knew you way back. Well,
yeah,
way
exactly.
back.
So a lot of people know us as like a sharing economy platform. So that's where we started. But now we really learn a lot from social, because we used to allow anyone to market a service or activity. So if you're a babysitter, well, you don't know how to promote yourself, right? So we have there. That's where we learn a lot about how to reach people and engage with people, and then we brought that now really focus solely on events. But since we've switched to fully event, like in the past 4 months, it's been
incredible growth.
I think it's interesting because like there are a lot of marketplaces for like social marketplaces for products, but there's no really social event marketplace. Like if you think of like Etsy, it's an amazing marketplace for like arts and crafts products. There's like eBay for like auction products. And there's all those like very social platforms for products, but there's no really social event marketplace because it's very difficult to engage people socially that way, and because events are so offline. But that's basically where we're trying to position ourselves.
So the little cards I circulated. Okay, the question mark is if you have a blog post suggestion. So like if you have a question, so for example about volunteer management software, although I've already done it, or ticketing system or things like that, I'd be really happy to look into it and do that kind of research and then post it, because that's why I've set up the blog. I have called Art of Festivals. It's to share my own research, basically my own investigations. So a blog post suggestion about events, audience development, like anything that, I don't know, anything you want me to do for you. And then and put your email address, maybe or your Twitter handle, so I can let you know when it's done. And then exclamation mark if you have any feedback, because like I said, it's always very valuable. So it could be for me, or for Ben, or for both, or for TechSoup, or for NetSquared, but like anything you want to say about tonight that would be really useful. And yeah, we can stick around for a few minutes if you have time
and
to stay. If
you have any questions specifically, even though it's not around ticketing and registration, like around automation or stuff like that, like we work with a lot of event organizers, so even though we only do ticketing and registration, like we know about like different situations that people have faced and different softwares, to solve this problem in a very efficient and cheap way. So feel free to email me or ask me questions around like marketing automation and stuff like that. I'm happy to. Or you can just email me as well.
All right, I want to thank you everyone for joining us again for tonight. Thank you for the speakers. We can just give them a round of applause. On behalf of NetSquared, here are some tokens of appreciation for leading the discussion. And again, if you have time, you can feel free to stay behind, and our speakers are going to be behind for about 5 minutes. And if you have any questions about NetSquared or about events that are coming up, you can also feel free to talk to us. Okay, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.